I'm back. Guess what? We're doing another video. And this time we have a combined double letter. TE. Same in VACTERL Association as VACTERL Association. And it is a big honking word that's very hard to understand. Tracheo-Esophageal. And this is where things get fun. We need another diagram because this is not enough. So, take a deep breath and hold. Keep holding. Keep holding. Okay. So, when you take a breath or when you eat something, it goes in the same tube in your throat. So, how does your body decide where it's going? It could be going to the stomach. It could be going to the lungs. And if you are very unlucky, you are born with a hole between those two passageways. Right here. Tracheo-Esophageal fistula. A fistula is a hole, and a tracheo-esophageal fistula, TEF, is a hole between your trachea and your esophagus, which allows things you swallow to go into your lungs. Perfect, right? Because the best, thing that new parents should ever have to worry about is, am I suffocating my child by feeding my child? Yeah, that doesn't sound like fun. So basically, not only are we born with stuff trying to paralyze us, trying to kill us. Oh, look, something's trying to kill us again. This is all the stuff that gets thrown at VACTERL babies to keep them from turning into Chuck Norris. Because if we didn't have all this stuff slowing us down, we would take over the world. Kidding. Kidding. Waiting on my letter from Professor Xavier, though. Mutant pride, y'all. So, tracheo-esophageal fistula. That's got to get closed up. You may notice I found my orange marker. This was all supposed to be one color. I messed up. I lost my orange marker. So doctors go in there and they cut that closed and they stitch it shut, right? That might not be the only thing they have to do. Atresia, a word meaning failure of the body to make a tube, like putting your sprinkler out on your lawn and then running a garden hose out to it about, a foot away. That would be failure to tube. So, that would be right down here. So, that's another issue I had. I had this failure to tubeness down there at the bottom of my esophagus where it was supposed to connect to my stomach. And it didn't. And the only reason for something like that to, well, what am I saying? Reason. There's no reason for any of this. So, while they were in there, stitching here, they went ahead and stitched this shut. So, this actually makes for a lot of scar tissue. This really, really sucks. Because when you go take a big honkin' bite of, like, a Big Mac or something, chew and swallow, and all of a sudden it gets stuck way down in there. Depending on what I'm eating, I can actually feel stuff passing through that scar tissue. Another thing that bugs me about this kind of scar tissue is not so much the bronchitis that I get all the time. The scar from the repair is here. It goes in between my ribs. The feeling of anything moving between your ribs is incredibly unnatural. And you know what? It's downright sickening to feel anything move between your ribs. Stuff's not supposed to move between your ribs. Normally, if something is moving between your ribs, it's because you just got stabbed. Ick. Ick. I don't like things moving between my ribs. Really. Because of placement, that is another issue. Bra shopping. Shop around. So, esophageal atresia is commonly referred to as EA. So if you're in a VACTERL Association forum and somebody has their E capitalized but not their T, you can kind of guess that's going to mean that they had esophageal atresia and not a TEF. Though the TEF is very common. In Europe, it's referred to as a TOF because they spell esophageal with an O in front of that E. Or instead of that E. I'm not really sure on that one. I've seen it both ways. So, let's see. The side effects from this 30 years after these surgeries to keep me alive. Because, yeah, that is exactly what new parents need to be worried about. Are we suffocating our child by feeding our child? Should we not be feeding our child? Should we not be allowing our child to breathe? Can our child breathe in the first place? So, 30 years later, there are types of bread I avoid. King's Hawaiian, as good as it tastes. Mrs. Barrett's white bread. Anything that is super fine and cakey. Which is weird because I can actually eat regular cake. I have no problems with cake. I love cake. You should bring me cake. But if it cakes up after you've eaten it and swallowed it, it's going to stick in the scar tissue. When I was about 17, I guess somebody asked me, because their son had a TEF repair and an EA repair. They said, hey, could you give me some pointers on the food stuff since you are a little better at being able to communicate with me than my itty big toddler? And I said, yeah, sure, what do you want to know? And it's like, well, we're still feeding him baby food and applesauce and stuff like that. And I was like, why? Give him something hard. Honestly. I mean, once they can chew it, you know. One of the best things for me if I have something stuck in my esophagus. Now, don't get me wrong, I can breathe. I can breathe. Okay, this is down here. This has nothing to do with obstructions that happen up here. Not actual choking. I hate it occasionally when I'm eating. If something gets caught, I may look and sound like I'm choking when I can breathe just fine, except for the little bit of pressure where this is pressing on here. And please don't Heimlich me. I do not need my sternum broken on top of all of that. Carrots, apples, celery, crunchy hardness that shoves, it acts like a plunger and grabs a hold of the cakey stuff that has made this blockage and just shoves it in there, just like, get in there, right? And that makes things better. And my cat is blocking my light. So there are different ways, of course, for everybody to deal with this kind of stuff. But you need to find out what works for you. One of the best ways of finding out what works for you / your kid is by talking around and see what works for other people. So, bronchitis. Ain't nobody got time for that, but it seems I don't got time for nothing else. I get it all the time. One thing that helps me prevent it is basically a little personal humidifier with a very mild saline solution. That is what has kept me from having to go in and get bronchitis medicine 5 times a year. And I haven't had to do that for the last year, which is fantastic. So, breathing in the saline. Doesn't sound like fun, but you know what? Basically, if it's the consistency of air around the ocean, you're probably good. So, there we have it. Tracheo-Esophageal Fistula and Esophageal Atresia. And in our next video, we will be getting into R. I do want to keep making videos when I am done with all these letters. But I think I've got enough that I'm going to start putting this out among friends and family now. And I would love to hear from you, publicly or privately. Holler at me, comment, send me messages. Catch me on Twitter. Check out how ratty and torn up this piece of paper is getting. My cat was sitting on it like 3 times now. Okay, so, yeah, still waiting on that letter from Professor Xavier's. And, I will continue to sit here. Unless Hogwarts will snatch me up first. So, I will see you guys for the letter R. Behave yourselves.